This is Wayne in Cave Creek, and I bring you to my fabulous camper, as you can see, and I'm here to show you my pack stove. It's made by MSR, which I believe stands for mountians+safety+research, and basically this is the body of it. Not much to it, weighs about almost a pound. Comes with a windshield, which I will show you in operation, and a handy bag to keep it in. Also, the pump for the fuel bottle came with it. Fuel bottle, I believe, came separate. I have two sizes of fuel bottles, one that's much larger than this I use for expeditions, and I can get about a week's worth of use out of that, providing that you just use it to heat what you need to and shut it off again. It uses white gas and white gas only. The attributes of white gas is that you get more BTUs per ounce out of it. If you spill it, it evaporates immediately, therefore it's safe in that regard. Whereas if you had a propane cartridge that you would pierce with a different kind of stove, you take the chance of it leaking. The contents are under pressure, which I don't like, and they basically fill up landfill space with empty cartridges. I don't care for them. White gas is easily gotten in any hardware store. Some grocery stores carry it, and basically this one holds about, I don't know, about a half pint. I only fill it about 3/4 full because you need enough air in there to be able to give you pressure when you pump it up, like this. Stove legs fold up like this, but you see these notches here. You depress it and you rotate it into place like that, and it would sit on a surface like this, as you'll see. Okay, I'm going to put the fuel bottle on now, and basically I would swing the bail out of the way. Okay, it really only goes on one way for safety, so it inserts in like that. It depresses the pressure valve inside, and unfortunately you need 3 hands to do it, but it locks down like that. Okay, so it would sit like this, although it's the swivel. Now then, the way this works is that under pressure you would open this valve and white gas would travel down this tube, and if you could see it in the picture, or if you see it in subsequent pictures, this loop goes up and around through this, where the filling pan is, and back down to the bottom here. What that does is that it has to get hot to flash it from a liquid to a vapor. That way it will hit the burner as a vapor and will give you a nice flame. If it hits it as a liquid, it'll fireball, which you'll see. Down at the bottom here has a little cup and a wick. The way this particular one, it's called the shaker jet, by the way. I don't even know if they make them anymore. They call them a shaker jet because there's a jet cleaner in there that you can rattle back and forth to clean out the jet, so it's a lot less maintenance than having to take it apart and clean it out by hand. But what you would do is crack the valve, and a little bit of fuel would accumulate on this wick here, and what you would do at that point with the valve off is you would very carefully touch a match to that, and I say carefully because you're better off using a long stick, because it'll fireball. It has to. It has to heat this whole assembly up to be able to generate vapor in this to kickstart it. You'll see how that works. It's kind of exciting though. You'll see. Anyway, once it's warm, you'll know because you'll get a nice blue flame out of this thing. The only thing I really don't like about it is that it's very hard to regulate the flame. You can't simmer with this thing. It's either on or off completely. But it puts out a whole lot of heat, and I like it for that reason alone. I've had this one for about 12 years, and I've used it on kayak trips, backpacking trips, long expeditions. It's never failed me, and one of the reasons is because of the shaker jet mechanism in there. If it ever gets clogged up, I just shake it back and forth like that, a little metal part in there, cleans out the orifice, and you're good to go. So I'm going to take this outside where I won't blow myself up inside my irreplaceable camper, and I will show you how this works. Okay, here I'm going to set it on a wash tub, and that way I can give you a better picture of how it works. Normally you would want to have bare earth around it for a couple of feet in every direction, because the resulting fireball that you will see will light the forest on fire if you're not careful. Like anything, you got to take due care with flame-producing devices such as this. And since I live in the Sonoran Desert, right now we have a wildfire going just up to the northwest of me right now, And it was probably from somebody being careless, so you got to be very, very careful. Okay, now, there's the generator loop I was telling you about. Goes up and back down and goes into here where the orifice is located, inside that part right there. And this is the wick, and you're going to see when I crack the valve on the bottle, it's going to make a little noise. And it's just soaked up with fuel. As a matter of fact, I put way too much into it as it is. So that will fireball. I'll heat that up, and this will actually glow red at certain points. And once that's heated up enough, it'll start generating a nice blue flame. But in the meantime, it's going to soot up. It gets really dirty, as you can see in my fingers. But that fireball is going to go a foot or two into the air. So when you use these things, you can't let them, get you too worried. You just got to be able to know what's going to happen and predict it. So I'm going to set up the camera and we'll light it up. Okay, it's all pumped up. The little wick down here is primed with fuel. Just by the way is the windshield. It would go over just like that with a little cutout for the hose to go through. And that way keep the wind from interfering with cooking and such. Big enough to get a pot in. I'm going to use this lighter. Usually I would use a stick maybe that long and light the end of it and touch it. But if it's windy, then you got to risk it. So anyway, at first it's going to give a nice big yellow flame until that generator gets warm again. Or it gets warm, and then it'll give a nice blue flame, and I'll show you how. So here we go. Okay. On a cold day, it may take a little longer to do this, but on a cold day, you wouldn't mind the extra flame. Okay. Normally, I put the windshield around it so it wouldn't be so bad, but I don't want to give you an idea. This is perfectly normal, but you gotta be careful with it. At this point, I'd probably shut the gas off again and let it burn down a little. You never want to put too much fuel into where it starts to drip out, which it did just a second ago. That's why I shut the fuel back off until it burned down a bit. And of course, it soots up really bad too. Starting to sound like a real stove now. And we're off. Nice blue flame, very hot. Matter of fact, I have to pull back on the throttle a little bit to get it to tame down a little there. All ready for a pot. Shut it down, just turn the fuel knob off. Flame will die down. That was hot. Don't ever do that with bare hands. And you'll see that little blue flame going down. And then once the whole thing's shut down, you gotta let it sit about 10 minutes or so for it to cool. And you can fold the legs back up and goes back in the bag, and you're off to another destination. And it's just about out now. That blue flame is very, very hot. It'll get a pot of water to boil in no time flat, even in the coldest conditions. You can probably hear the heat ticks. But that fireball is the main reason why you want to make sure there's no vegetation close to it when it goes off, or you're having it underneath a dry tree, or even worse for your own sake, a snowy tree. You never want to build a fire underneath a snowy tree. And that's it. MSR shaker jet stove. And I was mistaken. MSR actually stands for Mountains Safety Research. I bought this one at REI. I think I paid maybe $50, $60 for it, but that was a long time ago. I'm sure they're more than that. Do your research. This is just the one that worked for me. There are a lot of them out there, and I'm sure there's a lot of them as good or better than this one. But I have no qualms of taking this into the hills and using it. It will always come to life for me. So anyway, any questions or comments, please email me through the YouTube website. And thank you for watching.